Hi, I'm John Berry and welcome to CrossTalk. On this program, dialogue with notable local people takes place on issues that touch all of us in the Cedar Valley. We hope you will find these discussions to be transformational and stimulate change that benefits our community. We aim to get to the facts, hear and explanations, and discover the premises behind relevant issues. We hope this discourse will engender greater understanding of what affects all of us the most. By examining the many sides of an issue, it is our hope that the result will be a clear vision highlighting the possibilities for better information and an active public. Stay tuned. Crosstalk will continue right after this.
Getting healthy has never...
Okay.
Membership at Cedar Valley Sportsplex, offering 80 free classes a week at all skill levels. There's always new and fun opportunities to grow. You never have to miss out on your favorites with our state-of-the-art facilities, featuring great exercise equipment, a track and field, pool, and 2 regulation gyms. So whether your game is football or pickleball, let the Cedar Valley Sportsplex turn your routine into something amazing.
When I ride my bike, I am always very careful and stay safe at all times. I always wear a properly fitted helmet. I check the safety lights in the front and back of my bike, and no matter where I ride, I keep an eye out for cars, even when riding on the sidewalk. This message is brought to you by Drive Safe Cedar Valley.
Welcome back. My very special guest today is Cary Darrah. By the way, congratulations, Cary.
Thank you.
Cary is the CEO of the Greater Cedar Valley Alliance and Chamber. Prior to assuming the role of CEO in early 2018, she was Vice President of Community Development for GCVC, you have to tell us what that means, as well as the President of the TechWorks Campus Industrial Redevelopment Project and subsidiary. Cary is a native of Cedar Falls, a Iowa native, graduated from high school here, and welcome to our inaugural Crosstalk.
Thanks, John.
How are you?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
Before we begin, and since you are a newly minted CEO, can you give us a little idea of where you're going with
Sure.
The Alliance of Cedar Valley?
Very good. Well, to answer your question, GCVA is Greater Cedar Valley Alliance and Chamber.
Ah,
So the acronym, we're an industry full of acronyms, so I'm happy to spell that out. In my new role as CEO, I'm leading a really dedicated team of people who are working on the business community, but as importantly as a business, the community itself. And they're woven together. You cannot have economic development without community development, and vice versa, because they go in tandem. Right now, our highest priority that we're hearing from our businesses needs to be workforce and talent, not only attraction but retention. So that works very closely with our community development efforts.
Our first in this inaugural show is around global competitiveness. Wrote an article on that, and it was entitled Global Competitiveness in 4-Year-Olds, meaning Iowa 4-year-olds.
Right.
Where do you see global competitiveness in your role as CEO of the Alliance and the Chamber as it relates to Cedar Valley?
Absolutely. You cannot be globally competitive if you haven't taken care of your community. In order for our businesses, and many of our Cedar Valley businesses do business in Europe and across the world, China and other places. So, and we know they have thriving businesses going on. They're dealing with the same thing that businesses across the country and around the world are dealing with, and that is workforce. And again, and I mentioned that earlier on, but in order for us to be globally competitive, we need to have that workforce not only relevant to our local employers, but able to take those local employers to a global workplace.
So at this particular juncture, and you're newly minted, in terms of the global competitiveness in the Cedar Valley at this stage of it, and as we're moving towards the second half, if we could believe that, of the 21st century,
Sure.
have you or can you cite some of global competition from where you sit right now as an example?
Right, and again, going back to the workforce, we have a newly appointed Director of Talent Development, Cassie Grimsman. It is a subsidiary of our economic development efforts, but it's a priority. And again, it goes back to making sure that we're helping our businesses locally be more competitive, both locally, across the nation and around the world. That workforce has to be trained, either upskilled, trained, educated, motivated to be understanding how it feels to be globally competitive. So we work very closely with our higher ed institutions. We've got more to do. We work very closely with our K-12 institutions for the same, as you mentioned in your op-ed. So we recognize that our role in economic development and community development is making sure our businesses can grow. And in order for that to happen, it has to have a viable, retained and motivated workforce.
So as CEO of the Chamber and Alliance, is there a growing understanding of our role as a state and the nation and the region and global competitiveness?
Absolutely. We know there are barriers that need to be removed, and you and I and others that are watching this show participated in the Economic Inclusion Conference last Friday. Being inclusive goes far beyond ethnic and diversity when it comes to racial issues. It includes people with disabilities. It includes people with that returning veterans, people who are through the justice system newly released and can be viable employees of our growing workforce. So I think as a region, we need to work with our local elected officials to understand that some of those barriers can be addressed. They're not necessarily traditional, like taking on justice reform. They may be things that have to be addressed in order for us to be able to provide more people to choose from in order to be part of the workforce.
Which is a good segue into my next question. The Chamber's partnership with the local public school systems, i.e. Cedar Falls, and Waterloo. What are some of the things that the Chamber is kind of growing your own human capital as it relates to high-tech industries?
Very good. Specifically, under our umbrella of the Alliance and Chamber is the Cedar Valley education component of our organization. That's led by Melissa Reed and Terry Trask, and they take the Leader in Me program through the K-12 schools. Those are ready to bring that in, but that's preparing a workforce way down the pipeline. But we can't be naive enough to think that if we just deal with the current workforce who's ready to work tomorrow, that's going to be enough. So we're looking at and supporting them, that part of our organization, in making sure that we're in front of those future employees. Not only to be ready in a training sort of way, soft skills, we call it employability skills, being able to handle relationships and problem solving and things that they might not learn from a textbook comes directly from those efforts. But in addition to that, we work with the K-12. I sit on the CAPS advisory board. I'll be meeting with Dr. Lindeman shortly about looking at what future strands of their CTE program might include. So we kind of are the connection and the voice of the business community and the education community. We have great people on our team that sit in on those programs and those projects. And then beyond that, we work with Hawkeye Community College. We connect what's going on at Hawkeye with the businesses and what they might need or what they may need moving forward in the workplace. Hawkeye does a great job of outreach in making sure they're connected with the business community and understanding what their future job needs might be.
So growing our own, it sounds like, intellectual property that we must start at a much earlier age now, which is, if I might say so, you were talking about rethinking how we address K through 12 and the skills. So can you speak a little bit from where you sit, the skill set that employers are looking for?
Sure. Well, in addition to the Hawkeye, I should mention that we work closely with the University of Northern Iowa. I sit on the Future Ready Executive Committee. I know you're familiar with that. It's a statewide initiative on being able to certify people, employees, more quickly in order to get into the workforce, and what barriers can we remove in order to keep that flowing. But to answer your question, in understanding what some of these other programs that are going on, we know that everything that education is doing ultimately affects our business community. and we need to have that flowing of information both to education to us, and have that be a real seamless communication stream.
So you have employers also involved on those boards and advisory
Absolutely.
groups and think tanks too.
Yes, and the education system knows very well that they need to have that input from the business community. It happens to come through our organization most of the time, but it doesn't have to. They can make their own connections, and many of them do. And we're fully aware of that, and we support that. We are an organization that wants to facilitate and connect. We don't have to own things, but we want to make sure that people are getting the information that they need.
It's good that you say that, Cary. And we're starting, by the way, with our 4-year-olds at Tri-County Headstart, thanks to 2 large grants from the CUNA Mutual Group Foundation and also DePaco. We have what we call our high-tech learning centers in our Headstart classrooms. So the 4 and 5-year-olds have tablets, and we have a clip, and we'll come back shortly and take a look at what we're doing with the technology. So we're preparing them for K through 12 and the technology that's out there. These tablets are loaded with STEM application, and the clip will clearly show you what we're doing at the age of 4 years of age.
So the tablets have been here as long as I've been here. I started this year. They're a great tool for the kids. They have many great uses. We have lots of interactive games on them, so that really helps them with following directions. Are they understanding what they're hearing? Really, their listening skills, that really is a big impact with the tablets. Their fine motor skills as well, using their fingers for things. There's some writing games on there, some interactive drawing games to get their creativity flowing. There's some STEM games. There's multiple things, interactive games like I was talking about. Some math things going on as well. Lots of math concepts that you see. There's things that they can use to read, that help them read, and they're still getting the book experience on there as well. And those listening, can you find X? And they have to look for it, and they have to be able to find it, identifying pictures as well. So there's lots of great uses for the iPads, tablets in the classroom. We do 15-minute intervals, so they're not there the whole time of center time or work time, as we like to call it in my room. They're really interested in them. They have tablets at home. They see their parents playing with tablets. Technology is such a big part of the world now that seeing it in the classroom is just great for them, that they know this is just a part of normal life now, and it's just something we see everywhere.
Keep trying.
Keep trying.
Keep
trying. You did it again. Good job, buddy.
They enjoy the tablets. They enjoy the adult interaction with the tablets as well. We give lots of positive feedback. And if they need help, we help with that scaffolding piece as well with them.
So as you and the audience can see, we have started to address some of the skill sets, and we are trying to attempt to speak to some of the jobs that these youngsters, they won't remain for forever.
Sure.
If you are a parent, you know that. What is their job employment opportunities professionally going to look like for the second half of the 21st century? Is the chamber, the alliance in the chamber, are you looking at that, doing some war gaming, if you will, to project out, and how far are you projecting out?
So what's interesting is that many of the jobs 10 years from now haven't even been identified.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Preparing for those jobs is pretty much a shot in the dark, but knowing that there are going to be jobs, obviously, and being nimble to prepare our students, so that's a lot where those employability skills with the leader in me come into play, being able to be problem solve kinds of individuals, team players, people that can work in groups, because those jobs are going to be unique. and they're going to be fast. They're going to come fast, and they're going to be needing employees fast. So I think just the recognition that we need to be always paying attention to what's going to be in front of us and in front of our workforce. I don't know that we can project, quite honestly.
That's true.
But I think knowing that we're willing to say we can't project, but we need to know that there are going to be jobs. They're going to be likely STEM related, but we'll see. I mean, there could be robotics, which is STEM, but there are a lot of other technologies that are being groomed at the moment that will probably be part of our workforce.
There's an
needs.
alliance in the chamber as it relates to soybean and corn. Corn and soybean will remain the constant economic engine. In terms of research, are you seeing some changes there with research in corn and soybean and what these children will have to deal with, the second iteration?
Right. Very likely. I mean, there's always, we happen to have the world's largest agriculture equipment manufacturer in our area, so they are doing research, and they're way out in front of what these commodities are going to be, how they're going to be performing, how they're going to need to create the equipment to be able to deal with these commodities at their highest and best use. So while we may, as an organization, not be doing the research, we're paying attention to our partners who are, and making sure that they know that the information that they share with us will help us create the job economy, the workforce that they'll need.
I used to have a professor, Cary, that would say, once you see it, then it becomes beautiful. How do we get the Iowans here in the Cedar Valley, the greater Cedar Valley, to understand global competitiveness and competition when China is turning out tens of thousands of engineers along with India, and Japan is dealing with artificial intelligence? What is our counterbalance and the gross national product that we bring to the table? I'm talking about Iowa, the state of Iowa. How do we get Iowans in the Cedar Valley to take the 50,000 feet view, if you will?
That is a great question. I mean, I think it's one that all of us should be open to. And I think that in order for us to kind of circle back to our original question of our conversation, how are we going to be globally competitive? We need to demonstrate and provide those examples of how that is successful, and provide comfort, because it is change. And as we know, not just Iowans, not just Midwesterners, but everybody, there's a certain resistance to change unless we can demonstrate the value and the relevance. And I think that's our role, is to make sure that we can demonstrate why it's so important.
Well, when some of my research in the article that I wrote, Mexico, China #1 in terms of out-of-state export, Mexico, China, and Germany. The average Iowan, I didn't know, we export a vast amount of our agriculture to those nation states. We need to figure out a way to get the average Cedar Falls Iowan to understand that we play on the world stage, and that's a part of global competitiveness.
Right, and I think a lot of the political decisions that are being made now and will be in the future have to have our attention, both as a community, as a state, and especially our elected officials.
Now, for my last question, which is always kind of touchy with this, and it deals with race and global competitiveness. From where both of us sit, and with Headstart, which is a poverty index program, it's poverty index, but that doesn't mean that those great little minds have poverty in them.
Sure.
How do we bring the low-hanging fruit on board? And I'm talking the Black African American community, the Latino community. We as a nation, 350 million, in order to remain competitive, are we looking at everyone to play a role?
And while I can't speak for the nation, and I have very little control over what the national bodies that may be, but I can tell you locally, and you and I just referenced this, sat through the Economic Inclusion Conference last Friday, and with our speakers and the participation from our local folks, we recognize that not only is it the right thing to do, but it is a necessary thing to do to remove the barriers for our workforce to grow. And I thought we had some great content and great conversation from last Friday. So I'm looking forward to what that looks like. You're right. We've got a large group of folks from Burma and the Congolese, which I mean, there are a lot of. And how many languages do the Waterloo schools? Was it like 30 or 40 some languages that are going through the schools that we need to help remove those language barriers? And every resource we can. Again, not only because it's the right thing to do culturally, but it's the necessary thing for us to do
I think
economic development.
Exactly, and I think that the Alliance plays a pivotal role in getting other power centers within the community to understand it's better to educate than to incarcerate, and also public assistance. We need productive citizens of Iowa to drive this process, and that's all a part of global competitiveness.
Right.
No matter where you fit in the scale, the workforce scale, that is a key component, and I believe that we have the right person at the Alliance and the Chamber now to speak to that, that all of us need to be productive as we move forward. With the time remaining, what are some of the ideas that you're comfortable with talking about right now, that in the embryonic stage, with partnering public-private, things that we can, initiatives that we can look forward to under your watch?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, while you referenced me, I would say our team, because we have a great collaborative team who are working on helping remove those barriers. Again, it's necessary for the economic development growth of this community, and there's no reason that we shouldn't remove those barriers for everyone to participate in the economy and the growth of the Cedar Valley, and that's what we have to have. So some of the tangible outcomes you might see is we've been working with Intercog and Met Transit on some transportation opportunities.
In what regards? Manufacturing, building? Or
manufacturing employees that may have transportation barriers. Not just manufacturing, but that's where we've heard the loudest at the moment. We've got, as you know, we've got child care issues with access and affordability.
Yes.
And many of us that are not only at this table, but that are watching this program have been participating in working with many organizations in the Cedar Valley on how can we remove some of those barriers. Yes. So those are just a couple.
With two parents in the household having to work, no matter if it's skilled labor, and that's important that the Chamber and Alliance, I would say Chamber, Alliance and Chamber, plays a pivotal role in that child care is terribly expensive, but if you want parents to be productive, parents and child care givers, if you will, that we have to also look for that.
Right. So not only affordability, but access. We have more than 3,000 people or kids whose parents are looking for child care options for them.
Yes.
I sat next to an employer at the Economic Inclusion Conference. He said he may lose one of his best employees because after maternity leave, she can't find anyone to watch her new baby. So, I mean, it's just one example, but I know it's pretty prevalent.
Yeah, but it's important. It's very important to the productivity of an employee that she or he are comfortable with where their child is staying and knowing it. And unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, Headstart is exemplary, but it's poverty index, and the poverty index has not been touched in 30 years. So. That's
something you're going to be working on.
Yeah, that's something that Senator Grassley, Senator Ernst, Congressman Bloom, King, we definitely need to look at. And in terms of the global competitive, are there any special events that are on your drawing board that are coming up that you would like to invite the local community to?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, we just finished our collaborative event with the University of Northern Iowa on the economic inclusion. We always have our networking events that we invite our folks to because it's really important to connect with other people in the business community. So we have Good Morning Cedar Valley coming up in December. We have a business after hours at Advanced Systems coming up in a couple weeks. So on our website, GreaterCedarValleyAlliance.com. Take a look, and those events are listed in there.
We're almost out of time, but what was one takeaway that you had? from the last week's
Economic
event?
inclusion?
Yeah.
I liked the definition of economic inclusion, and it is removing barriers to allow all citizens to participate in the economy. I thought that was very obviously inclusive, but is very necessary.
Yeah.
And then from our guest speaker, keynote speaker, Dr. Nika White, I was more, it was more memorable, the question and answer period. There were very good questions coming from the Cedar Valley to her about what they're doing in North Carolina to remove barriers and to be more inclusive. And I was most proud of the questions that came from the audience. They were very, very insightful.
Yeah, it's not, you must tie in economic diversity. Yeah, well, thank you so much.
You bet, thank you.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to great things from you, and we're excited that you're going to move the Alliance and the Chamber forward.
We're taking one step at a time, and things are going well. But thank you.
That's a good thing. Thank you for taking time to be with us. On behalf of myself and the staff, CrossTalk, we ask you to stay informed, stay engaged, and be sure to join us again. Until next time, remember that winners never quit and quitters never win. I am John Berry. Have a good day.